Smash Bros. Is a franchise that spans generations and generations of games, to the point of where the most recent game has 63 total characters. But astoundingly, some of the newer characters, and even the newest one, are older than the game itself, which got me thinking, what would those characters be like if they're implemented in Smash 64? Obviously, as more characters are introduced, they will use skills from their most recent games. But what if they only had the games released up to 1998? That's what I hope to answer in this video, and its part 2 counterpart. This video will delve into characters released in Melee and Brawl, and the next one will deal with Smash 4 and Ultimate. Now for some rules. We can only deal with characters whose games have been released by January 1999. Characters like Shulk, Bayonetta, and Inkling won't be included, as they weren't even conceived yet. The same applies to moves if a game was released after January 1999. Then it will need to be replaced from a skill from an older game. The original Smash 64 didn't have a whole lot of weird gimmicky characters like we do now. The weirdest gimmicks on characters were like Ness's odd up B, and Jigglypuff dying when her shield broke. So mechanics like Cloud's Limit Bar or Little Mac's KO Punch are not allowed and will be removed for simplicity. Many don't remember that the original N64 Smash Bros. Didn't have side B moves, so every character is going to get a special remove for this reason. And finally, these are just my speculative thoughts. If you disagree with my assessment of a character, feel free to suggest a difference in the comments. Now with the rules set in place, let us commence with this hypothetical video. Young Link, Falco, Pichu, and Dr. Mario are all excluded, as they probably would just share the same moves and their differences as their original counterparts. So first up, we have Peach. I'd say Peach would be very similar to her Melee incarnation. The only difference is that Peach Bomber would be no more. The Parasol will still function as her recovery along with her floating from Doki Doki Brothers 2. Toad Counter will also continue to be her neutral special, and the Radish returns as her down special, face gimmick and all. Bowser will stay relatively similar with 2 changes. Firstly, Bowser's melee side special where he grabs and gnaws at his opponent will be removed. He doesn't really reference anything significant other than the fact that he has claws, and can in fact scratch, something already done by pressing the A button. I think his neutral special would be changed to shooting slow-moving projectiles, more akin to the original Mario Bros. Fireball, rather than the Mario 64 flamethrower he has in Melee. I mean, both work as a move, but I feel like this one will differentiate from Charizard's when we have to deal with him down the line, and just is overall more iconic. I don't see Zelda being that much different from her base form, but since Ocarina of Time is still young, by the time the original game came out, I believe instead of her side B being removed, her neutral B would be Din's Fire, and her down B would be Nehru's Love. Which yes, means that we would have to separate Zelda and Sheik as characters, like in the recent games, as her side B would turn into her down B. This also means that Sheik will keep her moves as well, along with not being able to transform. Next we have Ganondorf. This will be the first character who will get a huge change in their moveset. For most of the series, he's been a clone of Captain Falcon, with the only difference being that he was slower. It took until recently, where now he has his sword implemented in his smash attack. Now, it's all going to change. Our main problem is that the Ganondorf that we're dealing with is only about 2 months old, so it's not a lot of time for Ganon to develop a real diverse moveset. We'll have to use the one boss fight we have for this entire moveset, beginning with his tilts and aerials. Most of these attacks will implement his sword in some way, turning him into a slow but powerful sword user, kinda like Ike. Some of his moves will probably not have much of a source, but will be there to display him as an ancient evil and powerful force. One move that stays is his forward air, as it already is a reference to Ocarina of Time. Some examples I came up with is something like maybe his down tilt is a harsh stomp that does extra damage to fighters who are asleep, or his down air will be him plunging his sword directly below him, letting him keep his ability to easily spike opponents. There are many ways to play with this image of him being a dominating yet cunning mage. Smash attacks will be taken directly from Smash Ultimate. I think all 3 really show off his indomitable power. Now, let's get to the fun part. His new specials. No more Diet Captain Falcon moves. We're giving this villain some cool specials. His neutral special would be based on the energy ball from his boss fight. It is a projectile which is very powerful and has a low charge time, but has 2 drawbacks. 1, it's slow moving and easy to avoid. And 2, if a character hits it with their hurt box, instead of dissipating it, it reflects right back to Ganon, and he is now able to be hurt by this energy ball, careening right towards him. His down special is going to be based on a different game, Link to the Past. In the final boss of this game, Ganon will throw a pitchfork like a boomerang. And because the boomerang is Link's neutral special in this game, I feel it would be cool if it had an antithesis, thus the boomerang pitchfork. Instead of Link's one-time hit and long range, Ganondorf's will be more powerful with less range and a bigger hurt box. It's going to be thrown like Pyra's side B in Smash Ultimate, and to squander its ability to edgeguard, it always hits its opponents upward. His up B will be a swift, soaring, downward arch that will be animated as if it takes no effort, like his flying in Ocarina of Time. Next up, Mewtwo, who like most of the others will stay the same with only one major change. You see, in Melee, Mewtwo's neutral will be a Shadow Ball. a move that didn't exist until the second generation, which doesn't come out for another year. So Mewtwo's new neutral special is Confusion, and his down B and up B remain the same. The Ice Climbers are the first characters with a unique gimmick we're dealing with. At first I thought about just putting them in the original N64 game as is, but this poses a problem. You see, the Ice Climbers are in Smash 4 because the 3DS couldn't handle 4 different pairs of Ice Climbers fighting simultaneously. And the 3DS has better hardware than the N64. You see where I'm getting at? So the Ice Climbers as they stand couldn't function in Smash 64, and so I thought about having Popo being the main fighter and Nana being an alternate costume character, like Olimar and Alf. But like, what are we gonna call him? Ice Climber? That's stupid. I have a better idea. What if Popo just summoned Nana to perform a special move before disappearing? For example, for the neutral B, Popo calls on Nana to hit ice chunks towards their opponent. Once she does this, she disappears in a puff of smoke afterward, and returns only when Popo needs another special. The drawback to calling her for assistance is that she still does have a hitbox. If a foe hits her while she's out, she'll perform the Ice Climber's death animation. Popo will have all of his specials neutered for 3 to 5 seconds. Afterward, Nana will be able to reappear for help. Their side B will be the move that is sacrificed out of their moveset. Nana will be able to help him for his neutral B and up B. The down B remains the same, except for the fact that Popo will just blow the frost by himself. Maybe, if we can just have 2 moves where Nana appears, the N64 can handle it. Marth's moves pretty much stay exactly the same. His D-made moveset will pretty much just involve him losing his side B. The Melee team didn't exactly give him a lot of moves that were inspired from this game, nor were there a lot of games at the time to base his moves on, so there won't be a huge difference in gameplay. Finally, Mr. Game & Watch, again, since he didn't have any new games come out at this time, his moveset's going to be very similar, though this time I remove his down B, because Game & Watch's hammers are so iconic to him. I think he should have his standard frying pan projectile for his neutral B, and his hammers for his down B. Now, on to Brawl characters, where the first fighter we're going to be dealing with is Diddy Kong, who's going to need a complete overhaul in his moveset. Given the fact that all of his specials are from games that came out after the original N64 Smash Bros., luckily, we won't have to go too far to find some inspiration for a new moveset. Flashback to 2 years prior, where we have Diddy Kong Racing. We can use some of his power-ups from here to build up some specials. First, his neutral special will be a cartoon bazooka, which shoots the basic red balloon missile. This will be a powerful move with good range. Its drawbacks is that it takes time to charge up, and it only shoots 1 out at a time. I was split for his up B, whether I'd want to incorporate the plane or use a rope from the original game, but I think we have an obvious answer. He'll just be shot out of a barrel. The barrel cannon is so iconic that it appears on the Donkey Kong stage in the original game. So why not just use the assets from this barrel as Diddy Kong's up B? Except he's launched upwards, with the downside of his recovery being a very predictable path. Unfortunately, I'd love to use the banana peel, as it doesn't have a specific origin, except that tripping/stumbling wasn't introduced as a feature until Smash Brawl, so once again we'll have to get creative. We will once again be using Diddy Kong Racing this time, and we're using the green balloon, but this time we're going to use its second form, which is a landmine, that he throws one of these mines out in the air, and that it works as a trap for opponents. The upside is that it does insane damage to those who hit its large hurt box. Plus, it stays out in the field for as long as you don't throw another one out. The drawbacks are that unlike most mines, this one's quite obvious, so you can't rely on your foe forgetting about it. Also, it may be permanently out, but if Diddy Kong sets another one out, then the first one disappears. What I love about this move is that, just like the banana peel, it shows off Diddy's crafty nature, so the move keeps Diddy's personality intact. I contemplated including Zero Suit Samus, as her one appearance at this point has her as a secret ending and a happy accident with the Justin Bailey code. But I figured out after some research how we can make a moveset with her. Just get Samus, and use her missiles from Melee as her neutral special, replacing her charge shot, and this referencing the fact that she has an insane amount of missiles after putting in the Justin Bailey code. Maybe give her a new taunt if we're feeling daring, and ta-da, new character. I hate to make a character who is an original moveset and just turn her into a clone, but even in the original game, she was just Samus, but with most things unlocked. Next up, we have Meta Knight. Most of his specials are loosely based on abilities from later Kirby games, so we'll have to use what we have up to 1999. Luckily, we got a pretty good moveset from his boss fight in Kirby Superstar in the SNES. The only non-specials will change is that his neutral jab will become a single slash, like in his boss fight in the original game. Next, we have his specials. His modern neutral special comes from the tornado attack in Kirby Superstar. This will now become his down special, and his new neutral special will be the crescent beam he shoots in his second boss fight. It is incredibly fast and does okay damage, but suffers from its lack of range. Lastly, his up B will be a swift gliding technique, which looks somewhat similar to the beginning of Shuttle Loop. I'd put Shuttle Loop in, but with how slow the original Smash is, I feel like it'd be 8 years before the animation for the loop actually finished. There's that King Dedede next up on our list, and his changes are relatively simple. Neutral B will be the same, being the Great Suck. His down B will also stay somewhat similar, except the hammer will be charged and swung like a normal hammer. DDD won't have any jet engines or flames spewing out of it. Nope, it'll just be a normal hammer charged up and swung at opponents. Also, his up B remains the same. Wolf's up next, and let's just get Fox's moveset and make it look cooler. Aw man, game design's easy. Next up, Pokemon Trainer, who instead of being able to switch between all three Pokemon will be separated into their own fighter, like Project M, and the Pokemon Trainer concept will be completely abandoned. First, Squirtle. All three of Squirtle's moves are from Generation 1, so Water Gun is his neutral special still, Waterfall is still his up special, and Withdraw is now his down special. Once again man, game design is just so easy. Next up, Ivysaur. This time Razor Leaf becomes the neutral special, and Vine Whip will stay as its up special, but its down special will have to be changed to something completely different. Leech Seed. Ivysaur will lay down a small patch of seeds that will do poison damage to the opponent if they step on it, and if Ivysaur steps on it, it will heal it very slowly. The only other flaw to this move is that Ivysaur is only allowed to have one patch out at a time. Then Charizard, who keeps Flamethrower as their neutral special, and Fly as their up special, both functioning exactly as they do today. But Rock Smash isn't introduced until Generation 2, so we'll need to give Charizard a new move. I feel an easy one to implement would be Counter, a move he learns through TM, and would function as every other counter in the series does. Next up, Wario, who we will once again have to renovate the entire special moveset for, since every single special move he's had since Brawl are based on the WarioWare Inc. series, which won't exist for another 3 years. Before we tackle the special moves, let's bring back one more that we'll give to Wario. His Brawl Forward Smash. It's based on his Shoulder Bash from the Wario Land games, which will be used as our best source for his moveset. Other than that, we have a spin-off comic and some sports games. Speaking of the sports games, why not use them as some sort of reference? I feel Wario's neutral special should either be him hitting tennis balls at his opponent or golf balls at his opponent. Personally, I find him hitting golf balls to be a lot more plausible for his character. I mean, think about it. What's more dickish than pelting bystanders with golf balls? Alright, point taken. For this move, Wario has a bar over his head to determine how far and how damaging the ball will be. The more powerful the shot, the higher the ball goes in the air. The main drawbacks of this move is that it requires Wario to stand still without getting hit, it cannot be performed in the air, and it has some warm-up time before Wario's shot. Also, if the ball goes too high, it can go over the heads of shorter opponents. His down special is Wario rampaging by shoulder checking whoever gets in his path. He furiously charges at his foes, making great speed, crashing into anybody who gets in his way. Though if he reaches the edge of a cliff, he will immediately stop. This functions exactly like what it's based off of, his main shoulder attack from the Wario Land series. The upsides are its immense damage and knockback, along with being able to turn while rampaging. The downsides are that you can't jump, it's easily dodgeable, and once the attack stops, there will be some frames of cooldown time. Last but not least, his up B, which is Spring Wario from Wario Land 2. Wario will compress down like a spring, and after a second, soar vertically through the air. This provides a large recovery distance, and while he's in his collapsed state, he doesn't fall any further. The drawbacks are that each frame of his attack leave him vulnerable to other fighters, and it only shoots straight up, with no leniency, making his path super predictable to fighters. Next is Rob. His moveset stays relatively similar as it holds no references to the Rob we got, unless your Rob can actually shoot lasers, in which, bad news, your vintage Nintendo accessory is in fact trying to start a robot uprising. You should probably kill him now. I think his moveset stays exactly the same except we get rid of his side B. Now we hit our first third-party character, Solid Snake from Metal Gear Rising, who you may think only has 2 games at this point to base a moveset off of, but if you remember, the Metal Gear franchise actually started in 1987, with the original Metal Gear, and had 2 sequels in 1990, before Konami moved on to the more famous 3D stealth action game we know today. Surprisingly enough, his arsenal isn't that far off what we got from Brawl. In his original game, he used grenades, C4, and even his rocket launcher. We do have one outlier though, that being his up special, the Cypher, a lookout camera introduced in Metal Gear Solid 2, which comes out in 2001. So his N64 moveset would probably stick to having grenades as his neutral B, C4 as his down B, and instead of the Cypher, I think we should use the propulsion from his rocket launcher, the one from the original game, as his recovery. It propels him through the air at any angle he desires, and can even damage foes who are caught in his path. It goes moderately far, but has one major flaw. If he uses it on any solid ground, instead of flying upwards, it will severely damage him and leave him vulnerable. And voila, we've reached our final Brawl character, and the only third-party character to be in every game since they introduced him. Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic won't really change that much from his Balls moveset. His neutral B will stick to being the homing attack from Sonic Adventure, his down B will be the spin dash from Sonic 2, His upbeat will be the spring from the original Sonic game. If you really want to change something, we can change his theme from the Sonic 06 Victory Medley into his more iconic Level Complete theme from the original game. Which I think most people would prefer even nowadays. The original plan was to go through every character through each game, but we have 20 characters left, so instead I'll do a part 2, so I can at least upload a video by the end of July. So come back, or don't, for part 2, where I'll go through the Smash 4 and Ultimate characters, and give them movesets. If you want to keep up with all that, make sure you subscribe, so that shows up in your video feed. With all that said, bye for now.